You are working on too many things at once, not because you lack discipline, because you have been told your entire life that focus means choosing one thing and eliminating everything else. One path, one goal, one sword. And every time you try, the other things do not disappear. Everyone told Miyamoto Musashi the same thing. Two swords were not how serious warriors trained. One sword, one focus, one path. That was the tradition. That was what the greatest schools taught. Musashi trained with two, and then he walked through 61 duels against the best swordsmen in Japan and lost none of them. They had misunderstood the system entirely. He was not dividing his power between two swords. He was building a quality of mind that one sword could never produce. A mind that held two paths simultaneously without being confused by either. The habit of seeing only one option is the greatest weakness most people carry without knowing they have it. He called his system Niten Ichi-ryu, the school of two heavens as one. Not two swords, two heavens, one mind. 5 principles, each one in a different way. Your thinking is limited by the one sword habit. Subscribe and let's begin the story behind the principles. Edo period Japan, 1620. A young samurai named Takeru has been accepted as a student by Miyamoto Musashi. He arrives expecting to learn sword technique, how to hold two swords, how to strike with both, the physical mechanics of a style he has heard described as either genius or madness, depending on who is speaking. On his first day, Musashi hands him one sword. Takeru looks at it. Then at Musashi, he has come to learn the two-sword style. He expected two swords. One first, Musashi says, until I understand what your one-sword mind is doing. He watches Takeru practice for an hour. Then he sits. You have a strong technique, he says, and a limited mind. Takeru waits. When you attack, you have already decided what the response will be. I can see it. Your body moves before the opponent does. You are not responding to what is there. You are executing what you planned. He pauses. The two swords are not for your hands. They are for your mind. To train it out of the habit of deciding before it needs to decide, of seeing one path when two exist, of committing before commitment is required. Takeru does not fully understand. He will over the next months through 5 principles that change not how he holds a sword, but how he holds everything. Principle 1, Ninotachi 2 as one. The mind that holds both without choosing between them. Ninoachi means the second sword. In Niten Ichi-ryu, it refers to the specific relationship between the two swords. They are not two separate weapons, they are one system expressed through 2 points. Musashi demonstrated this to Takeru in the second week. He stood with both swords, he moved. The swords did not take turns, they did not alternate, they moved as a single expression of intention through 2 paths simultaneously. When one created pressure, the other created opportunity. They were in conversation with each other, not competition. Takeru tried to imitate this. He found himself favoring one sword, thinking about one and then the other, treating them as 2 separate decisions rather than one. You are trying to manage 2 things. Musashi said, I am doing one thing through 2 points. The difference is where the decision lives. For you, it lives in the hands. For me, it lives before the hands. Takeru practiced this for weeks. He kept splitting. The moment the pressure increased, his attention went to one sword and forgot the other. Musashi watched this with patience. Your problem is not the second sword, he said one afternoon. Your problem is that you are trying to add a second sword to a one-sword mind. That does not produce Niten Ichi-ryu. It produces confusion with an extra sword. He sat with Takeru. Ninoachi is not a technique you add to what you already do. It is a different starting point. You begin from the 2 as one, not from the one trying to become 2. This distinction changed everything for Takeru. He stopped trying to coordinate 2 swords and started trying to find the single intention that both were expressing. It took months, but when it arrived completely. The 2 swords moved as one instrument not managed expressed. This is the first principle applied to life. Most people manage competing demands the way Takeru managed two swords before he understood. They switch attention from one to the other. They allocate resources to one, then the other. They treat tension between two important things as a problem to be solved by choosing. Musashi's two-sword mind asks a different question. Not which one, but what single intention expresses itself through both. The person who holds career and family as two competing demands will always feel the tension of managing both. The person who finds the single intention that expresses itself through both eliminates the competition entirely. This is music, not easy. It requires finding the level of thinking where the apparent contradiction resolves, but that level always exists. Musashi found it with two swords. The person who looks for it finds it everywhere. The practice. Identify two areas of your life that currently feel like they are competing for the same resources, time, energy, attention. Write down the tension as you currently experience it. Then ask what single intention would express itself through both of these. What is the deeper thing that both are actually serving? The answer will not come immediately. Sit with the question for several days. The two-sword mind is built slowly. Principle 2, Kentai. The sword and the body are one. Action and intention cannot be separated. Kentichi means sword, body, one. The sword and the body move as a single unit. The technique does not happen to the body from outside. It emerges from the body from inside. Musashi taught this principle through an observation about how most people act on their intentions. They have an intention, then they take action. The intention and the action are experienced as two separate things. First the thought, then the movement. There is a gap between them. In that gap, doubt enters. He told Takeru to watch his own movement carefully. When you decide to strike, what happens between the decision and the strike? Takeru paid attention. He noticed something he had never noticed before. A brief moment of checking. Am I sure? Is this the right moment? What if I am wrong? That is the gap, Musashi said. That gap is where you lose. Not to your opponent, to yourself. In Niten Ichi-ryu, Tai Ichi is trained by eliminating the gap, not by suppressing the checking, but by training the intention and the action to be the same thing. Not first decide, then move. Decide by moving. The movement is the decision. This sounds like recklessness. It is not. It requires more precision, not less. Because when the action is the decision, the action must be completely right. There is no pause to reconsider. The people in modern life who struggle with this show it in a specific way. They know what they need to do. They can describe it precisely. They agree it is correct and they do not do it. The gap between knowing and doing is the same gap Musashi trained out of his swordsmanship. The checking, the revisiting, the accumulation of reasons that fills the space between intention and action. Kentai is not about acting without thought. It is about training the thought and the action to be simultaneous rather than sequential. The practice identify one thing you have known you need to do for more than 2 weeks, but have not done. Do not plan it further. Do not prepare more. Do not wait for better conditions. Do the first step today, not the whole thing. The first step. The step is the decision. Kentai begins with one instance of collapsing the gap. Principle 3. Sente, the initiative before the moment. Act before you need to react. Sente means prior hand, the initiative. In Japanese strategy, the player with Sente is the one setting the conditions rather than responding to them. Musashi wrote about Sente extensively in the Book of 5 Rings. He considered it one of the most misunderstood concepts in strategy. Most people interpret initiative as aggression, moving first, attacking before being attacked. Musashi meant something more subtle and more powerful. Sente is the state of having already shaped the situation before the situation demands a response. The warrior with Sente does not react faster. He has already acted before there is anything to react to. He demonstrated this to Teru through a specific exercise. He would describe a hypothetical situation. An opponent who did this, conditions that looked like that. Then he would ask Takeru, "What do you do?" Takeru would describe his response. Musashi would shake his head. "You are still reacting." The warrior with Sente would not be in that situation. He would have shaped the conditions before they became that situation. He looked at Takaru. The response to a difficult situation is always less effective than the action that prevents the difficult situation. You are training to respond well. I am training you to act early. This is the principle most directly applicable to how modern people approach their lives. Almost all human stress is reactive. Something happens and you respond. The problem arrives and you solve it. The crisis occurs and you manage it. Sente asks, what action taken now prevents the problem from arriving? Not reaction, pre-action. The shaping of conditions before conditions become problems. The person who addresses a tension in a relationship before it becomes a conflict has sent. The person who builds financial resilience before a crisis has sent. The person who maintains their health before illness forces attention has sent. None of this is complicated. All of it is consistently not done because reactive minds wait for the problem to make itself visible before acting. The practice. Identify one area of your life where you are consistently reactive, where problems keep arriving that you manage after they arrive. Write down one action you could take this week that would shape conditions before the next problem arrives. Not a plan. One action this week. Sente is not a strategy, it is a practice. It begins with one instance of acting before you have to. Musashi spent his life building a mind that saw more options, moved before it had to, and acted without the gap between intention and action. If this is changing how you see your own thinking, like this video, one tap. Now we continue with the final two principles. Principle 4. Mukamae. The position without position, the readiness that does not commit before it must. Mukamae means no posture. In traditional swordsmanship, a kama is a fighting stance, a specific position that communicates readiness and signals intention. Musashi rejected fixed stances, not because stances were wrong, because a fixed stance is a committed position, and a committed position is a visible limitation. The opponent who sees your stance knows something about what you will do. Not everything, but something. And in a fight, decided by margins, something is too much. Mukamae is the readiness without the commitment, the body prepared to move in any direction without having announced which direction. Takeru struggled with this more than any other principle. He had trained in stances his entire life. The stance felt like preparation. Without it, he felt exposed, unready, like standing in a room with no furniture. Technically open, but uncomfortably empty. Musashi watched him stand in Mukamae and saw the discomfort immediately. "You feel vulnerable," he said. "Yes," Takeru admitted. "Good, that feeling is accurate. You are vulnerable. So is your opponent. The difference is that your vulnerability is even. You have committed to nothing. Your opponent, if he takes a stance, has committed to something. His vulnerability is directional. Yours is not." He paused. "You are not less protected without the stance. You are more available to move in any direction the moment requires. The stance protects against one thing by sacrificing readiness for everything else." Takeru practiced Mukamae for weeks feeling wrong. The discomfort was consistent. Then, one day, an opponent attacked, and Takeru moved in a direction he had never trained to move from a fixed stance. It was not a planned movement. The body found it because nothing had been ruling it out. He understood then what the discomfort had been protecting him from. Not vulnerability, the appearance of vulnerability. The stance had been for his own comfort, not his actual readiness. This is the principle most people violate in their thinking. They adopt mental stances, fixed positions on how things work, what they are capable of, what kinds of solutions exist, what is realistic. These positions feel like preparation. They provide the comfort of knowing where you stand. But a mental stance is a commitment made before the situation requires it. It limits the available responses before the situation has shown what it actually needs. The person who has decided they are not creative will not generate creative solutions, not because they lack the capacity, because they have taken a stance that eliminates the direction before the situation demands it. Mukamae in thinking is the specific practice of maintaining genuine openness to options you have not yet considered. not false openness, the actual willingness to be moved by what the situation shows rather than by what your existing position expects. The practice. Identify one fixed position you hold about yourself or your situation. A belief that functions as a stance, something you have decided is true that limits your available responses. Write it down. Then write the opposite. Not as something you believe, as a genuine question. What if this were also true? Sit with the question for 1 week. Not to change your position. To practice standing in mukame available to be moved. Principle 5, Hito Uchi, one strike, complete commitment. When the moment arrives, nothing held back. Hitochi means one strike. In Niten Ichi-ryu, it refers to the specific quality of commitment when the moment for action has arrived. After months of training in Ninoachi, Kent, Tai Ichi, Sente, and Kamae, Takeru had developed something he could not yet name, a quality of presence that felt different from anything he had trained before. He was less committed before the moment and more committed in it. Musashi explained why these two things were the same principle expressed at different times. Kamae is the before, Hitoi is the after. The person who has committed nothing before the moment can commit everything in it. The person who has already committed something before the moment will always hold back because they are managing two commitments, the one they already made and the one the moment requires. He looked at Tiru. This is why most people never fully commit to anything. They have already distributed their commitment across too many things: the job, the relationship, the plan, the identity. By the time the moment arrives that requires everything, there is not everything left to give. Hitochi is the principle that makes the other four possible. You hold two things as one because you have not pre-committed to either. You act without the gap because you have not pre-distributed your commitment. You take initiative because you are not managing existing commitments. You stay in mukame because you have nothing to protect. And when the moment arrives, when the situation shows you exactly what it needs, Hitochi is available. Everything undivided, complete. This is not an aggressive principle. It is a principle of completeness, the complete action, whatever it is, the complete conversation, the complete decision, the complete effort, not the half-committed attempt that keeps something in reserve for the possibility that it does not work. The full strike once Musashi told Takeru something near the end of his training that stayed with him for the rest of his life. Most people live in the before. They manage their options, they protect their positions, they distribute their commitment carefully across everything they might need it for. They are always ready to strike but never striking, always prepared to commit but never committed. He looked at him. The two-sword mind spends the before empty and the moment complete. That is Niten Ichi-ryu, not a sword technique, a way of inhabiting time. The practice identify one area of your life where you are currently in the before, where you have been managing your commitment rather than making it, where you have been ready to act but not acting. Not because the moment has not arrived, because you have been protecting the option of not committing. Ask honestly, is this genuine waiting, or is this permanent readiness that never becomes action? If it is permanent readiness, the moment has been there for a while. Hitoi, one strike, complete. What Niten Ichi-ryu actually teaches. Years after his training with Musashi, Tiru was asked by a younger student to explain the two-sword style. The student expected a technical explanation. Which sword does what? How to strike with both simultaneously. The mechanics. Takeru thought for a long moment. The two swords are not the teaching, he said. They are the question. The question is, can you hold two things as one? Can you act without the gap between intention and action? Can you shape conditions before they shape you? Can you remain uncommitted before the moment and completely committed in it? The student asked what the swords had to do with any of that. Training two swords forces the mind to answer these questions physically. You cannot hold two swords and think about them separately. The body teaches the mind what the mind cannot learn from thinking alone. He paused. Musashi did not invent a sword style. he invented a training method for a quality of mind. The swords were the instrument. The mind was the point. This is what Niten Ichi-ryu actually is. 5 principles for a mind that sees more options, acts without hesitation, shapes conditions before they become problems, remains uncommitted before the moment, and is completely committed when it arrives. Not a martial arts system, a system for inhabiting your life more completely. 2 heavens as one. The dual awareness that holds everything without being overwhelmed by it, that commits to nothing prematurely and to everything precisely. Musashi built this mind across 60 years. The 5 principles are available to you now. Miyamoto Musashi was told his entire life that 2 swords was wrong. He kept winning anyway, not because he was stubborn, because he understood something the critics did not. The 2 swords were never about having more weapons. They were about building a mind that most people never build, a mind that holds 2 things as one, that acts without the gap, that shapes conditions before they demand reaction, that stays uncommitted before the moment and is completely committed when it arrives. Niten Ichi-ryu, music, the school of 2 heavens as one. 5 principles, each one a different layer of the same quality of mind. Ninoachi, hold both without choosing between them. Kentai, the action and the intention are the same thing. Sente, act before you have to react. Kamae, commit nothing before the moment requires it. Hito, when the moment arrives, everything undivided. Start with one. The one that shows you most clearly where your current mind has its limitation. The 2-sword mind is not built in one session. It is built the way Musashi built it. 1 principle at a time, applied to real situations until the mind that had to think about it becomes the mind that simply does it. That mind once built is what people who see it call unbeatable, not because it has more power, because it has fewer limitations. Comment below. 2 heavens, 1 mind. Subscribe to Master Zen for ancient wisdom tested by time and confirmed by science. New video every week. Musashi used 2 swords. Everyone else used 1. He won anyway. मुझे इस स्क्रिप्ट के मुताबिक 80 image prompte do scene by scene dojo old man की fle 20 do.